Since 1982, at least 15 members of the Catholic clergy have been murdered in Cameroon. 15 archbishops, priests, nuns found strangled in their beds, beaten to death, bodies dumped in rivers, and in every single case, no one was ever convicted. No results, no justice, no answers. The church kept asking for the truth. The state kept promising to publish the findings. They never did. This is not a story about one murder. This is a story about a system where killing a man of God has no consequences. And at the center of that system, one case stands above all the others. The case of Bishop Jean-Marie Benoît Balla, the Bishop of Bafia, found floating in the Sanaga River on June 2nd, 2017. His lungs contained not a single drop of water. He did not drown. He was already dead when they put him in that river. And what happened in the 20 days before his body was found is what Sealed is here to tell you. To understand why Bishop Balla died, you need to understand why Father Armel Collins Ndjama died first. Father Armel was the rector of the Saint Andre Minor Seminary of Bafia, a minor seminary, a school for teenage boys between 12 and 18 years old who aspired to become priests. Father Armel was Bishop Balla's right-hand man, his spiritual son, the man the bishop himself described as my right hand in the matter of vocations in the diocese. He had been sent to study in Europe. He came back, and the bishop trusted him completely. When Father Armel returned to Bafia, he started noticing things that shouldn't be happening in a school full of children. Under the bishop's authority, he began what sources describe as a cleanup, removing seminarians and priests suspected of homosexual conduct within the institution. But the more he dug, the bigger it got. According to multiple sources, what he uncovered went far beyond internal church matters. Residents of Bafia alleged that there were names on that list, powerful names connected to the government in Yaoundé. It was never officially investigated. Father Armel compiled everything into what sources call a blacklist, and he handed it to Bishop Balla. On the night of May 9th to 10th, 2017, Father Armel Collins Ndjama was found dead in his room. The bishop initially announced a short illness. He didn't believe it was murder, not yet. But then, someone showed him the proof, and everything changed. According to sources close to the diocese, when Bishop Balla was told, with evidence, that his closest collaborator had been killed, he lost control. He was, according to witnesses, psychologically and physically devastated. A priest who shared a meal with him days after Father Armel's burial described it like this. He always had a very worried, preoccupied look. You could feel so much suffering in him, but he kept his gentle smile. I noticed in him a silent stoicism. He understood what it meant. If they killed Father Armel, it was because Father Armel had told them he gave the list to the bishop, which meant the bishop was next. He tried to reach the presidency of the Republic directly. No response. He was running out of options and running out of time. On May 29th, 2017, Bishop Balla sat down and wrote 3 letters. 3 letters marked urgent, sealed, addressed, ready to be delivered. The first to Piero Piopo, the Apostolic Nuncio, the Vatican's ambassador to Cameroon. The second to Archbishop John Mambaga of Yaoundé, his direct superior in the Catholic Church. The third to the prefect of Mbam and Inubu, the government's representative in his region. 3 different powers, 3 different institutions: church, Vatican, state. He wasn't taking any chances. He wanted witnesses. He wanted someone, anyone, to know what was happening. The contents of these letters have never been made public, not by the Vatican, not by the Archbishop, not by the state. But according to sources close to the diocese, the letter to the nuncio contained 2 devastating revelations. 1, a denunciation of the homosexual network operating within the Church of Cameroon. 2, a direct complaint about President Paul Biya, a man the bishop had once known personally, for his failure to give the judicial police the means to properly investigate the death of Father Armel. 3 letters written on May 29th. 24 hours later, the bishop was gone. Here is what we know about the night of May 30th, 2017. Bishop Balla had dinner between 7 and 8 p.m. After dinner, he went to his private quarters. At approximately 11:30 p.m., he received a phone call. We don't know who called. We don't know what was said. What we know is this: he got up, he got dressed. He took the keys to his white Toyota Land Cruiser, not his usual vehicle for solo night trips. He normally took his blue Toyota sedan when he went out alone. That detail has never been explained. He told the night guard briefly, "I'm going to Yaoundé," and he left, alone, at midnight, on a road he knew well. Sister Scholastique, one of his closest collaborators, later told investigators, he never went out at night, and when he did go out alone, he always took the other car. A man who hated driving at night, taking the wrong car, going to meet someone whose identity to this day remains unknown. Was he going to meet an ally, someone who had called to say, "Come, I can help you. Come alone. Be discreet"? Or was that phone call something else entirely? A summons, a threat, an ultimatum? We don't know. What we know is that he went. The next morning, May 31st, Bishop Balla did not appear for morning prayer. He did not come to breakfast. His entourage raised the alarm. At around 1 p.m., a priest crossing the bridge over the Sanaga River at Ebebda recognized the bishop's white Land Cruiser parked on the bridge, engine off, key still in the ignition. On the back seat, his personal documents, his national identity card, his belongings, and a small piece of paper on official Diocese of Bafia letterhead. 4 words: Je suis dans l'eau, I am in the water. The authorities were immediately notified. The suicide narrative began almost instantly. But look closer. The handwriting authentication never published. The paper was on official church letterhead, meaning either the bishop had it with him or someone who had access to his vehicle also had access to his official stationery. The car was parked facing Bafia, not Yaoundé, which means if he drove to Yaoundé that night, he was already on his way back. He had been somewhere. He had met someone, and he was coming home. He never made it. Search teams deployed along the river for 3 days. Navy divers, firefighters, local volunteers, all focused on the area around the bridge. On the morning of June 2nd, a Malian fisherman named Ali Ahuji Dienta was checking his nets along the Sanaga River. He found a bishop's body floating on the left bank, not near the bridge, 17 kilometers away. He tied the body to a tree and went to alert the authorities. Now, Here is where the official narrative completely collapses. The autopsy revealed that the body had been in the water for less than 4 hours. The bishop disappeared on the night of May 30th. His body was found on the morning of June 2nd. That's 48 hours between disappearance and discovery. But the body had only been in the water for 4 hours. Where was he for the other 44 hours? Who had him? And the body was found 17 kilometers from the bridge, in the wrong direction relative to the river current. A body that falls from a bridge doesn't float upstream. It doesn't travel 17 kilometers against the current. This body was not put in the water from that bridge. It was put in the water somewhere else, hours before it was found. The bridge was a stage set. The car was a prop. The note was a script. And someone spent 48 hours making sure everything was in place before the curtain went up. The first autopsy was conducted by Cameroonian doctors. Its findings never made public, but sources close to the diocese leaked what it contained. The body showed multiple hematomas and blood clots near the brainstem, a broken arm and a broken leg, injuries consistent with torture. The genitals had been mutilated, allegedly as an act of torture or as a deliberate message. The lungs contained not a single drop of water. He was dead before he entered the river. The Cameroonian bishops, informed of these findings, did not hesitate. On June 13, 2017, the National Episcopal Conference declared publicly, Monsieur Jean-Marie Benoît Balla did not commit suicide. He was brutally murdered. But then the government made a move. They brought in 2 foreign experts, a German professor and a Greek specialist, allegedly from Interpol. Their conclusion? Drowning is the most probable cause of death. The bishops were outraged, and then a source close to the investigation revealed something that, if true, changes everything. The 2 foreign experts, some sources allege without official confirmation, examined a different body, not Bishop Balla's, a different corpse. If that is true, this was not just a cover-up. This was a deliberate falsification of forensic evidence at the highest level of the Cameroonian state. That allegation has never been officially investigated. Remember those 3 letters, written on May 29th, one day before the bishop disappeared. Let's talk about what happened to each recipient. Piero Piopo, the Vatican's ambassador. According to sources, he received the letter and, according to unverified sources, he allegedly transmitted its contents directly to Martin Belinga Ebutu, the director of the civil cabinet of the presidency of Cameroon. If true, the man the bishop trusted to carry his warning to the Pope handed that warning directly to the people who wanted him silenced. Piopo said nothing publicly. In August 2017, he quietly left Cameroon. On September 8, 2017, he was transferred to Indonesia. The Vatican refused to appoint a replacement nuncio in Yaoundé for months, unprecedented in over 60 years of diplomatic relations. Archbishop Jean Mbanga, the bishop's superior. He received a letter on May 29th. He raised no alarm. On June 6th, 1 week after the bishop's death, he was already in Bafia, not to demand justice, to announce the appointment of a temporary replacement, the prefect of Mbam and Inobo. He received the letter on May 29th. He raised no alarm. When the car was found on May 31st, he told reporters, "We can't conclude anything for now." And then, silence. 3 letters, 3 institutions, 3 silences. The investigation stalled almost immediately. The first autopsy report remains classified, and 8 years later, no one has been charged. Sealed is not saying these men are guilty. Sealed is asking, when everyone who received a cry for help chooses silence, what does that silence protect? Let's zoom out for a moment. Cameroon and the Vatican have maintained diplomatic relations since 1966. Over 60 years of close ties. Pope John Paul II visited Cameroon twice. Pope Benedict XVI visited in 2009. In March 2017, just 2 months before Bishop Balla's death, President Paul Biya met privately with Pope Francis at the Vatican. 2 months later, a bishop who had once been personally close to the Biya couple was dead in a river. The Catholic Church represents over 9 million faithful in Cameroon. It runs schools, hospitals, seminaries. It is deeply embedded in the power structure of the country. And that embeddedness, that intimacy between church and state, may be exactly what made it possible for this crime to disappear. Because when the church and the state share the same secret, neither one has an interest in the truth coming out. Here is what Sealed believes, based on the available allergy evidence, happened between May 30th and June 2nd, 2017. This is a hypothesis, not a confirmed fact. At 11:30 p.m. on May 30th, Bishop Balla received a phone call from someone he trusted. He left Bafia alone in his official vehicle. He drove toward Yaoundé, approximately 90 minutes away. He met someone, a meeting that, on the surface, appeared to offer help. But it was a trap. At some point during that meeting, or immediately after, he was intercepted, taken somewhere, held for up to 48 hours. He was tortured. He was interrogated. He was killed. His body was kept somewhere, away from the river, while the scene was being set. His white Land Cruiser was driven to the bridge at Ebebda and parked facing Bafia, as if he had already made the round trip. The note, 4 words on official letterhead, was placed on the back seat. His documents, his identity card, his belongings, all carefully arranged. Then, in the early hours of June 2nd, his body was brought to the river, not to the bridge, to a point 17 kilometers away, and placed in the water. Less than 4 hours before a Malian fisherman found him floating on the left bank of the Sanaga. His arms were crossed over his stomach, not the position of a man who drowned, the position of a man who was placed. Someone planned this carefully. Someone had resources, access, and enough influence to ensure that when the investigation opened, it would go nowhere. Again, this is a hypothesis, not confirmed facts. 8 years have passed. The Diocese of Bafia has a new bishop. Piero Piopo is now the Vatican's ambassador to Spain. Archbishop Mbarga is still in Yaoundé. Paul Biya is still president of Cameroon. The first autopsy report is still classified. The blacklist that Father Armel compiled, the list that allegedly started everything, has never been made public. And the names on that list, we still don't know them. Father Armel Collins Ndjama was in his 30s. He found something he wasn't supposed to find, and he died for it. Bishop Jean-Marie Benoît Balla was 58 years old. He refused to stay silent. He wrote 3 letters. He drove into the night to meet someone he trusted, and he died for it too. 3 letters, 5 silences, 1 body with dry lungs and broken bones found 17 kilometers from where everyone was looking, and a note that may have been written under duress, or may have been written by someone else entirely, that said 4 words. I am in the water. He was, but not the way they wanted you to believe. Sealed, what they didn't tell you, we dig where others stop.